There seems to be enough going on in the world right now that managing our personal finances can sometimes seem to be low down on the ladder of priorities, when in actual fact it's very important to build a buffer to protect ourselves and to create situations where we have money set aside to keep us going through a minimum of a month, hopefully for 3 or 4 months, so that if there's a change in the economy which affects the companies where we work or the people who employ us, we are in a place where we can make a difference. And what I want to talk about today is how to create £5,000 or $5,000 of set aside money without it being a huge challenge, but by doing so you give yourself some extra protection. If you want to take this figure of £5,000 and double that to 10,000, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to work on £5,000 because for almost all of us that will get us through a month and maybe 2 months. It's a nominal figure, but I've chosen £5,000 because to me it's a lot of money. But I imagine that by having £5,000 set aside, you can protect yourself from quite a lot of unexpected situations, bills that come in when you don't expect them, emergency scenarios where it seems very difficult to get through a situation without an extra bag of cash. Years ago, a speaker friend of mine, Bill O'Brien, used to say to us that you can make most problems go away with a bag of cash. And by and large, that's true. And what I want to share with you today is how to put away $5,000 or £5,000, your currency, your situation, so that you can make a difference when the going gets tough. 5,000 is a lot of anything, but break it down, that's less than £100 a week and works out at just under £14 a day. If you're confident in the numbers, if you can see that that income can be achieved, you can save up £5,000 in the course of a year. If you have an emotional value to what you're looking to save, to what you want to put aside and reach the end of the financial year with that extra 5,000 set aside, break it down, make it small goals, and it becomes a lot easier to achieve. How will you feel in a month's time knowing you've managed to set aside 420 odd pounds and that doesn't need to be touched, that you can repeat that process month on month and find yourself in a situation where at the end of a year you are £5,000 up, and that money can be used if you need it to, or you're going to increase that process and go the following year and put aside the same or more. It gives you an enormous sense of satisfaction. A couple of years ago I was in not a dead-end job, it was a job I enjoyed. I got the basic wage for it and it was great because I could walk to work from my house and I didn't need a car, so that was one way I saved money. But by the end of the year I'd built up savings of just over £5,000, and that was a game changer for me because it was the first time in many years that I'd managed to accumulate cash. Since then I've learnt more ideas and followed more methods to be in a stronger position. But for me, £5,000 was that very first goal, and I was able to do it just a small amount of money, £15 a day. That was how I went about it. You're only looking at £100 a week, slightly less than that in fact, or £14 a day. If you can save that money, that's great. But if you can make that money, that's even better, because you're building up your resources day by day from a process that is fairly simple. Start by decluttering your living space, by emptying out things from your home that you no longer need, are no longer using, and which will have a value to somebody even though you no longer have requirement for them. It's long since ceased to be of value or of use to you, and you can give it a new lease of life by providing it to somebody else, and they will pay you for it. They'll come to your home and they'll pick it up from the front door, or you can post it and ship it to them via a courier or via your mail system at home, and money turns up in your account. Remember, you're looking to manage an increase of 14 or 15 units of cash every day, and it's going to be very easy to find several £1,000 worth of value, several $1,000s worth of value by looking in your cupboards, your wardrobes, your hiding spaces in the house. Maybe you've got stuff in the basement. Maybe you've got things in the attic that you no longer need and which you can take advantage of by identifying them, listing them online and selling them easily and quickly. Platforms like Facebook, Etsy, eBay, Craigslist, all of these are useful. All of them will take your goods and in exchange people will pay you handsomely for the things that they want, just as you once upon a time wanted those things, but you're no longer using them. If the idea of decluttering your space seems daunting, go through it one room at a time. If you get nervous about that and that seems too overwhelming, just look at one space or one cupboard within a room at a time. Open a drawer and think to yourself, do I need this? Do I want this? When did I last use this thing? Take some photographs, fill a little plastic crate with things that you no longer have need for, take them into a part of the house where you can take some pictures, list them online, put on a good description, add a price, and make them available for somebody else to buy so that you can boost your savings by $14 a day. As you move through your house, you'll find plenty of options, and what you're doing is giving yourself extra revenue, extra cash, and all of this is going towards your $5,000 savings account. The second thing I want to suggest is that you ask for a raise at work. You've been there a few years, you're doing a good job, you're part of a team, people recognize your skill set and they value you. If they value you and it's been a while since you had a raise, now's the time to ask. A simple raise of $20 a day gives you that extra $5,000 a year, provided you don't let lifestyle creep take away that money. And by lifestyle creep, all I mean is that you use the $5,000 that you've received instead of allocating it to your savings, to your spare cash account. That would be a huge mistake, but by being sensible, by living on the same standards that you have at the moment, you build your buffer instantly by asking for that $20 a day raise. If you're self-employed and you have a specialist skill set, when was the last time you gave yourself a raise? When did you last say to your new customers and your existing customers, this is my new rate, it's increased by X dollars per hour or X dollars per task? People come to you because you're skilled at what you do. Your clients respect and like your skills and services because nobody else does it the way you do, or with your character slant, or with your depth of experience and understanding. If you haven't increased your rates this year, putting $20 a day on your charging structure has just given you a $5,000 boost. Why do you need an extra $5,000? I'll tell you why you need $5,000, because you're carrying debt, you're carrying high interest on credit cards or some personal loans or some car finance, and that hurts you every month. Maybe you're spending $2 or $3 or $4 or $500 a month just on interest to get by. If you can wipe out $2 or $3 or $400 a month of interest payments, the following quarter, the following 6 months period, you are so much better off. Look at the interest charges you're paying every month and use some of your existing wages, some of your existing earnings from self-employment to pay down those high interest cards, to reduce that money on your car finance. A few £100 every month reducing your debts is clearing the interest that you're paying, getting rid of the burden of charges every single month. So paying down some of that high interest debt this month and next month, alongside earning money from decluttering or increasing your rates or asking for a raise at work, all of these things increase your total income coming into your household. Every debt you actually clear becomes available cash the following month once those payment charges have finished and come to an end. One of those earlier points I made was about asking for a raise in your job. How about changing your job? Is it something that you're due for? Have you been in your current role for 2 or 3 years? You're getting used to everything. Everybody's getting used to you. You're settled in a rut in a good sort of way. But if you were to change your job and have a 10 or a 15 or a 20% salary increase based on more experience, based on the job that you've been doing, based on the recommendations and the referral comments you can get from your existing employer, if you're 20% better off, that's adding a lot to your cash flow, and it means that you are able to boost your savings massively whilst still paying down any of that interest debt that you're carrying. So consider that new job. Are you registered on the relevant job platforms? Do people in your social circle know that you're looking for a change in financial situation? Are you letting people know that you're willing to try something new and maybe stretch the boundaries of your existing knowledge, or simply use the brilliant experience you've already got to increase your income? A 20% boost to your income, provided you don't let that thing called lifestyle creep suck the new earnings away from you. That's an amazing way to boost your savings, to clear your debt, and put yourself in a stronger situation every single month. How about a sideline in earnings? It might be something that you do part-time. I'm not suggesting you take on an extra 4 or 5 hours a day that's going to wipe you out emotionally and exhaust you when you come home every day. No, something that you could do for 4 or 5 hours a week. That's an extra £100 a week to build a buffer, to create financial lifestyle for you, in the sense that you have that protection from unexpected situations, from difficult circumstances coming along and surprising you when you're least expecting them. Grab some paper and a pen and make an outline set of ideas about what it is that you could do or you could offer, based upon things that you do well, based upon experience that you've got that lots of other people do not have. And could you simply sell your time in a Zoom call, for example, or a telephone consultation for $20 or $30 or $40 for a call, and boost your savings massively in the short term for very few hours claimed against your time? What can you create and sell as a physical product, maybe on a platform like Etsy or eBay, that is something that people want, something for their home, something for their car, something that they would just love to own because they know it's handcrafted or purpose made for them, which you can provide, pop in a jiffy bag and send out to them in exchange for a payment? What can you do? What can you offer? What can you share with the world that will bring in an extra $100 a week on top of your existing earnings, which is not a massive drain on your personal diary or your household or family lifestyle, but which adds an extra $400 or $500 a month and gets you just on its own to that £5,000 or $5,000 savings goal? It can be really easy to rush in and out of work, to go from one task to another, to look after the family, to be busy, and feel like a busy fool sometimes and not accomplish all the things that you want to do. One area where you and I can save money is by meal prep. We can save so much time by meal prepping, and the fact that you could make 3 meals out of one cooking session has just saved you maybe an extra hour or an extra 2 hours in the kitchen by doing it on the one occasion. You're also saving time when you're shopping, but what you're doing is prepping those meals. Let's say you prepped for 3 days worth of meals once a week. You've actually saved 4 or 5 hours of time. If that saved you $10 or $15 or $20 a week, that's something else that goes towards putting that extra money back into a savings account instead of losing it on wasted food. If you get paid monthly, it's really easy to think, oh, I've got plenty of money in the first week or the second week, and sometimes the third week after you've been paid. But come the final week of the month, it seems like you've got more months left over than money, and it becomes a real urgent situation to think, okay, I've got to get through this week, I've got a little bit of money left over for the supermarket, I can just about afford fuel for the car, and the situation becomes more difficult. Instead of being in that situation, why not start to work out a weekly budget? Start a weekly budget. It's really simple, and the easiest way to do it is to say to yourself, I need this amount of money for the week, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my budget on the basis of only using 90% of what my expenses were last week. This automatically sets aside 10% that you can see accumulating in your bank account or your separate savings account, which I hope you've set aside. The idea of planning your weekly budget is a brilliant and easy one, because it means that you are less likely, it's not impossible, but you are less likely to have surprises come up and whack you by the side of the face that throw you off track and that cause you unnecessary hassle and frustration and angst because you've got money set aside. When you're setting up a weekly budget, identify your basic categories of spending, and those will be things like accommodation for rent or mortgage, utility bills for heating and light, food, transportation, clothing, Identify what those categories are, and then divide your monthly income by 4.3 for each calendar week, and that will give you your weekly income and the figure that you need to be thinking of. But then play the budget game and identify how you will cover each of those categories using only 90% of your weekly income. That's another game that you can play, but by finding the difference between what you could spend and what you've always spent in the past, and doing the same on 90%, you won't notice a big difference in your food bill or your transport costs, but you will pay your rent or cover your mortgage, but you'll have 10% set aside. These are just simple ideas. I hope they've been really helpful, but my real goal for you is that you are able to set aside $5,000 this next 12 months. I think realistically you'll be able to do the $5,000 and far more besides by looking at those simple ideas. We've looked at just a few ideas here to get you towards that goal of $5,000 saved, and we started by saying selling your clutter, potentially getting a raise at work or chasing a new job and finding a new job with a better rate of pay. That's a relatively easy thing to do. Raise your rate if you're self-employed. Look at your high interest debt. Where are you carrying residual debt on a credit card because you're never clearing the balance? Month after month, you're paying hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars of interest in a year, but start with a snowball effect and start to get rid of either the smallest lump sum that you have as a debt on a card or a loan, or by tackling your debt by throwing more money at the higher interest debt. You can start a side hustle just to bring in an extra $100 or $150 every single week in exchange for a few hours of your skill, a few hours of your dedication to something that you'd love to do, but which other people will pay you for because they want your experience or your skills to make life easier for them. We've also looked at meal prep and how that can be a very simple way to save money and cut your costs. You're only cooking once, but you're batching up 3 or 4 meals, you're putting those in the fridge, and you're saving yourself time on gas and electricity. The food that you buy is actually the food that you prep, cook, and eat. And the final recommendation I've made is that you start a weekly budget. Don't see a budget as something which is draconian and too much of a discipline for you to get involved with. See the financial goal of having £5,000 set aside in 12 months' time, or very likely far shorter than that. Use a budget to motivate yourself and to feel the emotional benefits of having $5,000 set aside so that you don't even need to touch it, and you carry on with a savings program that, regardless of your income, is something you can achieve. Get focused and motivated on the idea that you can use little steps every day and every week to build and to grow a $5,000 savings pot, which you can be proud of, but also really happy about because you've put the work in and you've made it your intention to set aside and grow that $5,000 sum. I hope this has been helpful. Please drop a comment below, let me know how you get on, and if this has been useful, which of these 6 or 7 ideas discussed has been the most helpful for you. I wish you every success with your saving.